right, take two. We've got Jeffrey Sachs with us now, joining us via phone. Jeffrey, right before we lost you a couple segments ago, and thank you for coming back to us. We were talking about how you recently wrote about President Donald Trump's what you called his climate fantasies. You wrote, quote, "The laws of nature are more powerful than the decrees of men." That was a line of yours that I really. So I want you to make your case to all of us about the dangers and circumstances as you see them surrounding the president's climate change denial.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, for hanging in there. I appreciate it, because this is a very important topic, and we really do need to discuss it and understand it. So basically, we're on a very dangerous global warming trend, and I think almost everybody knows it. And every country in the world signed up a couple of years ago in Paris to do something about it, and that is to try to head off disaster. And disaster would come if the Antarctic ice collapses into the sea and raises the ocean level 6 meters, which is something absolutely possible, or we devastate our ability to grow food. And that's actually already happening in many places in the world. So there's a global consensus about this, except for a tiny, nasty, greedy community, and that community is a few CEOs and owners of the oil, gas, and coal industry. They happen to have a greedy president of the United States ready to do their bidding. They've been waiting for this moment because the Koch brothers have been trying to buy up, and they basically have succeeded in buying up the Republican Party. And now Trump is trying to implement the play of Charles and David Koch, the owners of Koch Industries, which is one of our countries and the world's most polluting companies, and one of the biggest private holdings of oil and gas in the world. So they want to wreck the planet for God knows what. They already have $100 billion between them. And the president spouts whatever idiotic statement he wants to make, because there's no sense, no rhyme or reason to it, nothing but complete hack. It's just junk. But it doesn't matter to them. They're laughing because they think that this is the way to a few more years of profits of this industry. So that's our fight.
Well, so in your piece, though, you also say it's about campaign finance, right? But what?
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's basically the Koch brothers and the Business Roundtable and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And
yeah, but isn't there some aspect there of where it's not all about greed, and there is maybe some aspect where it's about jobs, and it's about people that have lost their jobs in this transition away from carbon and into green tech? And don't you think there's some honest motivation there?
No, there isn't, because the coal miners that everybody waxes so rhapsodic about have already disappeared from the scene in America. This is a decline that's gone from several 100,000 coal miners around 1920, and a century later we have about 15,000 total in a workforce of 150 million people. 150 million. So we're talking about a tiny fraction of a normal random turnover day to day or week to week or month to month. And if we cared a whit about these communities, we'd be helping them seriously to find many, many other jobs. But we don't care a whit, because this is a game of an incredibly capital-intensive industry with a few owners that want to make some money. So this whole thing is a racket, this idea of the jobs, but it's a cruel one. Trump is, a master cynic. I don't think there's a moment where he cares about telling the truth. And certainly the Koch brothers are among the world's largest polluters, and they have spent, as we know, unbelievable sums to try to get their way. So we're dealing with very powerful, very greedy people, and it's all dishonest. It's not one single study. All they say is, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. But that's just a game. because they don't want to write down one fact. They don't want to try to have to understand one thing, and they're putting the world at danger. I don't think they're going to succeed. It's so crass. It's so bald-faced. It's basically asking people also to put in investments, say this Keystone Pipeline, of $8 billion for garbage, because the last thing the world needs is to carry Canadian oil sands to American refineries. So I think, like many things that Trump does, it's a bunch of bluster. It's barking in the night. But it is a kind of cruelty, and we absolutely need to fight it.
Jeffrey, I want to ask you quickly before we wrap here on Fox News Sunday. Just yesterday, the EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, basically largely defended the assertions he's been making for a long time, saying we can be both pro-growth or pro-jobs as well as pro-environment, essentially arguing these two things are not mutually exclusive. Why do you feel like that's not the case when it comes to these potential agenda policies the administration can roll out? Why not believe the EPA Administrator on his word?
Well, we can be pro-jobs and pro-environment, but that's by shifting to solar and wind and hydro and other clean power. What Pruitt is the worst kind of lowlife who has been financed by Continental Resources, one of the big oil companies based in Oklahoma. They made his career. This guy will say anything. That's why he's put in the job, because these people have no shame at all. And they know nothing at all. But they've been on the pay of the oil industry for so long. You know, when Trump signed his thing, he said, this is for clean air and clean water. I don't know whether he's a complete ignoramus. It's an arguable point. But I think he is a 100% cynic, because he doesn't give a damn whether he tells the truth or not. And the same is true with Pruitt. Pruitt has been on the payroll of this polluting industry. He'll say anything he wants for them. They put him into this position for exactly that reason. Of course we can make jobs and prosperity, but you do it by going to a 21st century energy supply rather than a 19th century energy supply. All over the world, that's how they're doing it. The United States is standing by itself right now because we have a president of singular cynicism. That's where we stand.
Okay, Jeffrey Sachs, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the technical issues. We'll hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks for hanging in there. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.